Last on Everdark, Julian, Elizabeth, and Sophia were walking in the garden, discussing some of the possibilities the existence of vampires raises, when Elena attacks Julian. She blames him for Heath's second and third death, as Daemon destroyed the rotting corpse in the catacombs, as without the soul, it would not remain. Elena's actions cause her second life to be forfeit to Daemon, but Julian and Elizabeth convince him to spare her. Balthazar must take her mind instead. Everdark, Episode 62, Walk on the Beach.
On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the most angry and 1 being the least, what are you feeling?
Julian asked, as Daemon curled an arm around his shoulders. The Vampire King considered this. Was Julian asking if he was angry at him, or angry at Elena, or angry in general? Probably all of them, with the true emphasis on himself. "I am not angry with you," Daemon answered. Julian let out a breath, but then tensed as Daemon continued. "I am concerned."
Concerned? That somehow sounds worse. Anger fades. Concern often grows?
Julian made that a question. "You are so young. I forget this. You do not know our ways or what it is to lead predators," Daemon explained. Julian bit his lower lip, and his head drooped like a flower on a stem.
I just couldn't let you kill her.
I know you couldn't. I shouldn't have allowed you to influence me," Daemon said quietly. He watched as Balthazar and Christian, with Ridley's help, assisted Elena into the house. Her mind was too broken at the moment for Balthazar to do anything safely. She needed to feed, or be fed if she wouldn't take care of herself, and then Balthazar would be able to pluck her mind like a musical instrument. Elizabeth's presence neared them. With just a look at Sophia, the child vampire took the older woman's hand.
"Let's go inside and find Henry,"
Sophia suggested, but there was just the slightest thread of vampire seduction in it to overcome Elizabeth's desire to stay with Julian. She reluctantly allowed Sophia to lead her away. Fiona turned to them and said with a slight bow,
"I will go search out Arceus, unless you need me."
"No, Fiona. We are well. Thank you for your assistance," Daemon said. And he was appreciative. Of course he had not needed her assistance, but that she had acted to help him. It was the first step.
"I will see you both later then."
Another bow, and she teleported away.
That is such a cool power.
Julian breathed, looking longingly at where she had been. "You will learn to do it just as easily," he assured his fledgling. He would make it so.
I don't know.
Julian let out an uncertain laugh.
I keep imagining half of me appearing in one place and the other half staying where I was.
"I will make sure that does not happen," Daemon said. The image of that happening, though, was now in his head. He already had the image of Julian's heart being ripped out by Elena. This was not adding to his mood. "I wish to walk."
Okay. Where?
Julian asked. "Anywhere. Take me to some place you love."
Shouldn't we stay here, though? I think some of the Muir and Callie houses are coming to see you, and...
"Then I definitely need to walk. They will wait. They will benefit from my calmer mood." Julian nodded.
I think I have the perfect place. Do you like the water?
"It has been some time since I was near the ocean. Is that where you wish to go?" Julian nodded again, a smile breaking across his lips.
I want to take you to the beach.
He looked a little sad for a moment.
The beach is the one place where I think I might miss the sun, although it's too cold for swimming.
Daemon let a slow smile cross his face. "Not for vampires." Julian's eyes widened even as he turned his body so that he could latch onto Daemon's waist.
Something tells me that you don't wear a swimsuit.
"What's a swimsuit?" Julian just shook his head and laughed, but then his fledgling was eagerly pulling him towards the front of the house. He laced one of his hands with Julian, and the two of them jogged to the front of the house and then onto the sidewalk. It was much like their first walk to Julian's house.
I feel naughty doing this.
Julian admitted with a laugh.
Like we're playing hooky.
"Perhaps we are, but it is a good thing." As Julian led him down the sidewalk towards the direction of the ocean, Daemon could smell the lovely salt water. His fledgling cast a glance back at Ravenscroft Manor with a slightly worried expression. Reading Julian's thoughts, Daemon answered, They will be safe. If an attack were to occur, I would know and teleport us there in moments.
Balthazar and Christian might worry where we are, though, even if no one comes to attack them.
Julian pointed out, but he did turn back towards the direction they were going. Balthazar knows we are headed to the beach. Daemon tapped his temple.
Ah, yeah. Of course, you and Balthazar can talk to each other telepathically, like we can.
There was a pause, and then Julian, looking rather shamefaced, admitted,
I'm sort of jealous that he can do that with you. I thought it'd be only you and me.
Daemon leaned down and kissed Julian's nearest temple. It is not the same. Nothing could ever be the same as what we share. Julian colored, and then, looking chuffed, said,
Good. I'm not going to deny that I'm psyched you feel that way.
It is the truth. Julian beamed again. As they came into more populated areas, he lightly shielded Julian's mind from all the minds around them. He increased that shielding as Julian pinched the top of his nose as if he had a headache coming on. His fledgling looked up at him gratefully.
The voices are getting louder,
Julian explained. Daemon nodded. That makes sense. We are around Iros himself. You would key into his powers first.
I really don't want to read people's minds.
I know you do not.
And you know why, too, don't you?
Julian's gaze was on him again. Of course.
So why? Tell me.
It is not a magician's trick. Daemon laughed, but then he felt how serious Julian was about knowing. Ah, I see that you are not sure why yourself. Do you want to know the truth? Julian nodded.
Well, I would say always, but maybe not.
That is wise. Daemon rubbed his thumb over the back of Julian's hand. But in this case, you need not fear the truth. It is not out of some terrible motive. You don't wish to read minds because you fear it will dim your good view of people. You would rather think the best of them.
Yeah, that's likely true. Though it means I really don't think people's real selves are all that nice, doesn't it? I just discovered about myself that I've been shut off from people for a long time. More shut off than Christian. Both of us have been in the bunker together.
It is understandable. You lost people in your early life. You do not want to experience that pain again, Daemon guessed. They were crossing a busy street when a car blew a red light and was about to careen into a group of young women ahead of them. Daemon moved. He brought the three women himself and Julian to the opposite sidewalk, and the car flew by without causing any damage. There were shouts and honks from many horns, but no one had gotten hurt.
What the?
Julian looked shell-shocked. The young women were as well. One of them with dark hair and eyes turned to Daemon and grasped his free hand in hers.
Thank you. You saved us. How did you?
But she got no farther. Nor did the man who had pulled over his car, who had seen Daemon's impossible save. Nor did the people on the opposite sidewalk who had seen it all happen. For Daemon sent a wave of power out that touched all of their minds. They now remembered him saving the girls, but it had been merely pushing them out of harm's way, not teleporting them onto the sidewalk. You are most welcome. Go, enjoy your evening, and think no more about this, he told the young woman with the dark hair and eyes. She nodded, much like a person under hypnosis, and she and her friends went on their way. Within half a block, they were laughing and talking normally again. The man who had pulled over got back in his car, feeling kindly about strangers who risked their lives, but he too was back to thinking about his own situation before he had driven a block. Julian watched him out of narrowed eyes.
Balthazar did something like that at the Blood Den. It's amazing that the two of you can just make people remember something that isn't true. I'm sort of wondering, since Christian and I have lived in the same town as Balthazar for all our lives, that it hasn't happened to us once or twice. I think we just met him, but how can I be sure?
Daemon had a momentary rush of jealousy about Balthazar being near his Julian before him. Knowing his penchant for pretty young men, and the two of you in particular, I have no doubt he has.
I'm going to ask him. Or better yet, I'll ask Arceus. Balthazar might try to lie a little.
Julian laughed. He will definitely lie, Daemon sighed.
I guess I should be glad that Balthazar is so good at affecting minds, considering...
Julian ducked his head.
Considering he's going to do that to Elena.
Yes, Daemon smiled.
Will he make her forget that Heath ever existed, or what?
Balthazar likely wouldn't erase Heath's existence. That would cause too much cognitive dissonance, especially with an Iros bloodline vampire, as she would read the confusion in people's minds immediately. and Balthazar was not yet capable of weaving memories for all vampires' minds at once, so it would likely just be a lessening of her grief. Perhaps Balthazar would even make her angry with Heath for what he had done. Turning grief into rage was easier. He told Julian as much. Julian nodded, but he was still upset. His fledgling blamed himself for Elena's reaction to him.
Since you're listening to this, there's a good chance that you love audiobooks. I do too, which is why I make sure that every book I have on Amazon also has an audiobook. This is, in fact, how I met Edward and Hannah, two of the actors for Everdark. Edward and Hannah narrate my Cinders and Ashes series, which is a gay high fantasy romance with fae, very loosely inspired by Cinderella. This is by far the most popular of my audiobook series, just because they're so good. I'll put a link to the first audiobook in the notes.
Julian, what has happened with Elena is not your fault.
That's not true. I asked you to protect Christian and me,
Julian said.
I knew that you'd have to hurt him, at least, if not kill him. So I am responsible.
They would have killed you and Christian without hesitation. I assure you that you are spending far more time thinking and mourning Heath than he would have ever done for you. Daemon ran a hand through Julian's dark hair.
Probably. I don't know. I've just never been responsible for someone's death before. Not even tangentially,
he admitted, and stretched out his neck for more petting, which Daemon was happy to oblige. There will be many new things to you in this second life, Julian, Daemon advised him, challenging things. Julian bit his lower lip as they crossed into a tree-lined avenue that led to a set of wide stairs down to the beach. He could already see the silvered sand beach ahead of them and the water that looked velvety black. He took a deep breath. He felt better already. The buzz of fear about losing Julian was tamping down, but he felt his fledgling was still worried. Not about Elena, though.
I made you look weak, didn't I? When I begged you not to kill her.
Julian's shoulders slumped.
I didn't think...
You reacted. Understandable. We are both new to this, Daemon answered, squeezing Julian's hand. They had reached the stairs that led down to the beach. It was mostly empty. There was a couple, however, lying on a beach blanket, arms wrapped around each other, the smell of their lovemaking still staining the air. Daemon's stomach grumbled. He would definitely have to feed more tonight. This couple would be a good start. His predator's mind immediately started a plan of attack, but his fledgling was still upset. He would handle that first, the couple second.
How should I have handled it? Taken you aside? Your mind was closed to me.
Julian said the last with a slightly anguished look. Daemon grimaced. Julian had tried to reach him over their bond repeatedly, but he had been too filled with fear-based rage to respond. Even now, he kept Julian at a distance as scenarios of seeing him hurt or killed raced through Daemon's mind like a squirrel chasing its own tail. I am sorry. I should not have done that, but my thoughts were jumbled. My emotions were out of control. He stopped walking as they were now just above the reach of the waves. He cupped Julian's face in his. It would have hurt you to have our minds touch at that moment. Julian searched his face and his mind for a lie, but found none. Julian buried his face against Daemon's chest. His hot breath gushed over Daemon's skin. He kissed the top of Julian's head again and again, smelling and tasting him with those kisses. Julian's arms wrapped around him as if Daemon was a large teddy bear he wanted to squish against him for comfort. The Vampire King smiled and laughed softly to himself. He had never been anyone's teddy. More kisses, though, had his stomach rumbling again. Julian drew his head back to meet his gaze. A crooked smile was on his fledgling's face.
You're hungry.
Yes. Julian turned his head towards the couple, who were giggling and talking softly to one another.
And I see you found some dinner.
I have. Would you like to help me?
Help you what?
Julian turned a confused expression towards him. Hunt them. Julian's eyes widened. He opened his lips, likely to say no, as his little hero did not like to attack the innocent. But then he firmed his resolve and nodded. He understood that he would have to learn how to do this eventually. Not for some time, but still, eventually. Besides, It was fun to teach his clever fledgling.
So how do we do this?
Julian rubbed his hands together. Daemon cupped his chin. First, we do not look like we're hunting them. He leaned down and kissed the young man full on the lips. His fledgling's expression went from anxious to slightly dazed. Follow my lead.
Okay, sounds good.
You'll find that hunting has a natural rhythm, Daemon explained as he had them saunter down the beach towards the couple. They looked like a couple as well, but just out for a late-night stroll. Now I know that you are concerned about hurting innocent people.
Yeah, a bit.
Daemon let his lips linger on Julian's cheek and dragged them over his jaw. Julian's breathing quickened and his heart raced. The next section of the podcast has been abridged. Being fed from is pleasurable.
You've said that.
Very pleasurable.
I don't know if I want you to give anyone else that much pleasure.
Julian said dryly. Daemon tipped his head back and laughed loudly. The couple's eyes were drawn to them. He knew the man felt annoyed that they were being interrupted, but this was a public place, though he was right that it was a very large beach and they could go elsewhere. The woman thought they were an adorable couple.
They know we're here. That guy is not pleased,
Julian said worriedly, though he kept a smile on his face. Remember what I did to the people on the street before? Julian nodded. Let me show you a subtler way of doing it, Daemon suggested. Now he could have simply made the couple fall asleep and stay asleep while he fed. That would have been a workmanlike way to go about it. He explained as much to Julian.
Let me guess, that's not a challenge?
Julian let out a small chuckle. Correct. Stalking prey is part of the experience, Daemon said with relish. In order to comply with YouTube community guidelines, the next section of the podcast has been abridged.
We shouldn't leave them here. Someone might hurt them,
Julian said with a frown. Daemon felt a wave of affection for his fledgling, but a little sadness too. Julian would learn that they could not save everyone, but for now, he would do his best not to break that to his impressionable beloved. We won't, Daemon assured him. We'll watch over them while they sleep. Why don't we take that swim? Julian looked out at the velvety black water, and a smile curled his lips.
Yeah, definitely. Let's do that.
Join us next time for episode 63, Enemy Mine.
One thing to note about all my audiobooks is that they are not censored, unlike the public Everdark podcast episodes, because they aren't publicly available. Audible doesn't require the Disney-safe editing that we all have to do here. I don't write a ton of sexy scenes in the Cinders and Ashes series, since it's romantic fantasy adventure, but there are some hot moments, and Edward does an amazing job with them. And as always, you can get the Everdark uncensored audiobooks from the Wraith Rain shop. They are not on Amazon, the Wraith Rain shop as well. Look in the show notes down below for the link.
The Everdark podcast by X Aratare is performed by Edward Fox, Adam Riley, Jay Thillis, Bruno Devant, Kelly Michaels, and Hannah Hart, with Liz Gentle as Seer. Edited by Matthew Prince, continuity by Adrielle Wiggins. Everdark is produced by Wraith Rain Publishing in association with Her Grace Reed Studios. Copyright 2022 by Wraith Rain Publishing.